Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome one and all for this morning's session. Professor Ashish Choudhury's talk for today is titled Secure Multiparty Computation for Data Privacy. Dr. Ashish obtained his PhD from IIT Madras, Chennai in 2010. He did his MS by research also at IIT Madras in the year 2006. After his PhD, he worked as a visiting scientist at Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata for a year, and then as a research assistant for 2 years at the University of Bristol, UK. His research interests include theoretical cryptography with specialization in cryptographic protocols. He is currently an associate professor here at IIIT Bangalore. He is a former Infosys Foundation Career Development Chair professor and is a Vishwesvaraya Young Faculty Research Fellow at IIIT Bangalore. Now on to Professor for his talk. Thank you very much.
So hello everyone, good morning. So I will be talking about secure multi-party computation for data privacy. So since the theme of this workshop is data privacy, let us start with the importance of data. We are all in the age of data. Today data is everywhere. So every individual has some data associated with the individual, like age, salary, bank details, your vehicle details, fingerprint, genome sequence, etc. Any profitable organization also has data associated, like list of employees, their details, profit, loss, turnover. Educational organizations have their own data, like list of employees, awards, degrees awarded, recognitions, publication details. Hospitals have their own data, and security agencies like RAW, IB have their own data. Military organizations have their own data, like list of soldiers, details of the operations, etc. Every country has its own associated data, like list of citizens, details of the MLAs, MPs, etc. So even though we are in the age of data, certain kind of data is very sensitive. So if we again go back to the various type of data that I have shown you in the earlier slide, if we consider an individual, then there is some data associated with that individual which is very, very sensitive. Sensitive in the sense that that individual may not be willing to make that data available in the public. Like, for example, his salary. Well, boys do not worry about making their age public, but girls may not want to make their age public. Salary details, I may not want to make my salary details public, or my biometric traits is a very sensitive information. My genome sequence is a very sensitive information. So all these are very sensitive information, which I would not like to make available in the public domain. If we consider organizations like, or big corporate giants like Google or Microsoft, then they may not be interested to make available how much profit they have earned, how much salaries they are paying, etc. Educational organizations have their own sensitive data. For instance, how many suicides happen, how many cases of sexual harassment happen. So all these are very sensitive data. Each hospital has some sensitive data, like the entire history, medical history of the patient. Okay. Every security agency, so they have their data which is very, very sensitive, like the list of intercepted messages, their employee details. Military organizations, again, they cannot go public and make available all the intercepted messages. Every country has some sensitive data like nuclear weapons, submarine information, satellite details, and so on. So even though we are in the age of data, certain kind of data is very, very sensitive. So now a big question is that since we are surrounded by data everywhere, how to prevent unauthorized access of sensitive information? And I hope that you got a good understanding of what is cryptography all about from yesterday's section. So you might be saying, okay, why can't we just encrypt the data? If we encrypt the data, then it prevents unauthorized access of sensitive information. I will be safe. Fine. But now we are going to talk about some applications where we are now going to talk about a scenario where we have distributed participants. That means we have multiple participants who do not trust each other. Okay, they are mutually distrusting. And each entity here has some data available with that entity. So I'm calling these entities as P1, P2, Pi, Pn. So we have n number of entities. Each entity has some private data. So the data of nth party is xn, the data of the ith party is xi, the data of the second party is x2, the data of the first party is x1. What exactly is x1, x2, xi, xn? Let's not go into the details. We will slowly see what exactly the data and this x1, x2, xi, xn is. So you can imagine it's some abstract data. And these parties do not trust each other. That's why they are not willing to share their individual data with others. So for instance, P1, he is not willing to tell others what exactly is the value of x1. P2, he is not willing to tell the value of x2 to others. Pi, he is not willing to tell others what is xi, and Pn, she is not willing to tell others what exactly is xi. However, they still want to perform some computation on their private data. Okay, so that computation is abstracted by a function f. So f here is some computation abstracted as a function. Okay, so this computation has to be done over the data of all the individuals, x1, x2, xi, xn. So together, these parties would like to perform some computation or compute the value of this function f on the data x1, x2, xi, xn. But in the process, they do not want to let other parties know what exactly is their individual data. So that's why I'm calling this problem as privacy preserving distributed computation. Okay. So this problem is also called as computing on private data. Actually, this is the name of a course which I teach at IIIT. Why computing on private data? Because we have data available with multiple entities, which is private. Private in the sense it is available only with that entity. And they would like to perform some computation on that data. Well, the terminology computing on private data is not very popular, but if you search in Google secure multi-party computation, then you will get a hell lot of details, lots of papers, tons of papers. So this problem is also called as secure multi-party computation. Why secure multi-party computation? Well, multi-party because we have multiple parties here. Computation because they want to perform a computation abstracted as a function, and secure because we want to perform this computation securely in the sense every entity, no entity is willing to let its data available with other entities. Now, interestingly, this problem as of today cannot be handled very efficiently by traditional encryption mechanisms. Because if you are wondering that why can't party 1 encrypt x1, let party 2 encrypt x2, let party xi encrypt xi, and let party n encrypts xi. Fine, that will ensure their data is private. But as soon as they encrypt their data, the encrypted content is now a jargon. It makes absolutely no sense. Now the question is that how can you perform computation on this encrypted data? You can't do, at least using the traditional encryption schemes, you can't do that. We have some advanced form of encryption called fully homomorphic encryption, which may allow you to do this, perform the computation on the ciphertext or the encrypted contents, but they are not very efficient as of today. So encryption solves only one of the problems, namely, it ensures the confidentiality of your data, but it does not make the data available. And remember, to compute a function, we need to know the value of x1, x2, xi, xn. Because if you don't make the data x1, x2, xi, xn available, how you are going to compute the function? So these two goals, confidentiality and availability, looks like a pair of conflicting requirements. You do not want to make your data available. That's what confidentiality means. But at the same time, you want the data to be available because you want to compute. Okay. So looks like that we cannot solve this problem using traditional encryption mechanisms. So how exactly we go about solving this problem? But before we go into the solution for this problem, you might be wondering where exactly we face this kind of scenario where we have mutually distrusting entities and each entity has some private input and together they would like to perform some computation. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you several case studies here. And we will see that each of these case studies can be abstracted by this problem of secure multi-party computation. So I start with the problem of privacy preserving data mining. Okay, so the problem here is the following. You have, say, various hospitals. I've taken here 3 hospitals, but it could be n number of hospitals. Each hospital has its own patient database. And remember that patient database is a very, very sensitive information. There are various legal obligations which actually bind the hospitals not to make the patient database public. You will never find any hospital, say AIIMS, Apollo, or Manipal, and go to their website and find out how many patients in their hospitals are suffered from AIDS, how many COVID patients, the exact details of the COVID patients, and so on. You can't find those details. So that's why this patient database is a very, very sensitive information. Each hospital has its own database. Now, suppose the government government wants to come up with some kind of survey. They want to find out how many patients are suffering from AIDS in total in the city. Or is there a common patient registered for some specific disease across all the hospitals, or some various other kind of statistics. It could be any kind of statistic. So this is now a scenario where these parties here, so you have 3 hospitals, they have their individual database, and together they would like to perform some computation. They would like to compute some statistics across all the database. How can they do so? Of course, they can solve this problem by making or exchanging their database with each other. AIIMS go and give its database to Apollo, to Manipal. Manipal gives its database to Apollo, to AIIMS, and Apollo gives its database to AIIMS and Manipal. Fine. And then they can find out whatever statistics they are interested in. But that's simply a breach of privacy. In that process, AIIMS ends up learning the database of Apollo as well as Manipal. Manipal ends up learning the database of Apollo as well as AIIMS, and so on. So the privacy of the individual database needs to be preserved, but at the same time, we would like to perform all these computations. Now let us see how this problem fits the framework of secure multi-party computation. In this example, I had 3 parties, P1, P2, P3, and what will be X1, X2, X3? X1 is the database of AIIMS, X2 is the database of Apollo, X3 is the database of Manipal. And what is the function f? So that means n is equal to 3 here. And what is the function f? The function f will be modeling the statistics which you want to compute. Okay. Or consider the problem of secure e-auction, okay, where we have, say, a set of bidders. Each bidder has a private bid, and they are bidding for some valuable object. And we want to run a protocol an algorithm, an online algorithm involving these bidders, so that at the end of the algorithm, only the highest bid should be revealed. So for instance, if bid 2 is the highest bid, then at the end of the protocol, it should be learned that bid 2 is the highest bid. Of course, that will disclose that bid 1, bid 3, bid 4, and bid n were all less than bid 2. That's fine. That's allowed to be revealed. But no additional information about the exact bids of the other bidders or the losing bidders should be learned. Okay. So again, this problem can be abstracted by your secure multi-party computation framework. Here we have n bidders. X1 is equal to bid 1. X2 is equal to bid 2. Xn is equal to bid n. And the function f is basically, you want to find out the max function. You want to compute the max of bid 1 to bid n. Of course, this problem can be solved if everyone makes their bid public. If x1, x2, xi, xn are all made public, we can quickly compute the max, but we do not want to do that. We want to still compute the max function here without disclosing the exact value of the individual bids. A special case of this secure e-auction problem is the seminal Yau's Millennials problem introduced by the Turing Award winner Yau, who actually formulated this problem of secure multi-party computation in his seminal 1982 Fox paper. What's the problem? We have two millionaires who are not in talking terms with each other, but still they want to find out who is richer between them, without disclosing the exact value of this. So this is a special case of secure two-party computation because we have only two parties here. And the function that they want to compute is this, less than equal to. Privacy preserving machine learning. Okay. It is said that data is the new oil, fine, but you won't get that oil in petrol stations. Okay, that data is only available with big tech giants. So what is the goal of privacy preserving machine learning? What exactly is the goal of machine learning? Basically, you have a lot of data available and you want to run some training algorithm and come up with a model so that based on that model, you can perform future predictions. Okay, that's basically the idea of machine learning. Now, the accuracy of the prediction will depend upon how accurate is your model. And the accuracy of the model in turn will depend upon how diverse is your data. If the data is going to come from various diverse locations, diverse sources, then it is likely that the model is going to be more robust. So now imagine a scenario where we have data owners. They might be different hospitals or they might be different entities, but they do not trust each other. They have their own individual data. And together they would like to run a protocol and develop a model, but in the process, they do not want to disclose their individual data. A very useful case study for this problem is the following. Imagine that these data owners are the car manufacturing companies. You have, say, BMW, you have Tesla, and some other company, okay, Tata. And together they want to prepare a model for driverless car. Well, each company has its own model, but they feel that, okay, if they perform a training on the joint data, then the resultant model will be very, very useful. So see, they have the business incentive here. They want to keep their individual training data private with each other, but at the same time, they would like to access the data of others so that a more robust model can be created. So how exactly we can solve this problem? Okay. So this again falls under your umbrella of secure multi-party computation. You have X1, X3, X2, denoting the respective data available with the individual organizations. And the F function is basically the model which you want to compute. So you want to just learn the final model but in the process, the privacy of X1, X2, X3 should not be revealed. Okay. And of course, there are some other problems which we tackle in secure or privacy preserving machine learning. I am not going to the details. Okay. So now I have given you several case studies, and if I want to give you the case studies, well, I can utilize the full 1.5 hours to just give you the case studies itself. What I want you to appreciate here is that indeed what I am talking about is very, very practically relevant. There are lots of distributed applications where we have data available with mutually distrusting entities where they would like to perform a joint computation. They would like to collaborate and perform some computation involving the data of all the participants, but in the process, they would like to keep their individual data private. Now, what could be an ideal solution for solving the MPC problem? A very, very ideal solution. Let me ask the audience. You can unmute yourself or you can type in the chatting window. What could be a very trivial solution for solving the MPC problem? We have n entities here, x1, x2, xi, xn denotes the individual private input. We have a publicly known function f. Remember, the function f is publicly known. The computation which needs to be performed is publicly known. Okay, that is publicly known. We want to compute f of x1 to xn, but in the process, we do not want to disclose the individual input. So what could be an ideal solution? Okay, trusted third party. Give data to a trusted third party. Analyze the data at each person. Who will analyze the data at each person? I cannot ask the other participants to go and analyze the data of other participants, right? Anonymize data, but again, if I anonymize data, then how you perform the computation? Compute function, but if I just encrypt the data, it becomes a jargon. I cannot do the computation on the encrypted data. So I want to say, okay, don't use this jargon, secret sharing and all those things because I have not yet explained them here. Third party, okay, right. So let's see that. Good. So the solution that some of you are proposing here is the following. Imagine there is a trusted third party. TTP denotes here is trusted third party. Suppose I claim that I am a trusted third party. I go and announce to everyone, you can trust me, you give me your data. Don't worry, I will not disclose it. So all of us, all the participants trust me, they give me their data. I now have the data of all the individuals. I know the publicly known function. I can compute y and give back y to everyone, right? The problem is easily solved. So let us now close this lecture. No need to discuss further. Or is there some problem with this solution? What's the problem with this solution? What's the problem with this third party approach solution? Good. It creates a single point of failure. Okay. It creates a single point of failure in the sense that where you will get such a trusted third party? How can you trust anyone? We started the whole problem discussion by saying that no party trusts anyone. So there is no entity called trusted third party. What if that trusted third party gets corrupt, gets compromised? Then he can simply do whatever he wants with your data. So trust is very rare and volatile. And if there is trust in the world, then MPC should rest in peace. Okay. So looks like we are now talking about some really, really difficult problem. We do not want this solution. We want to run a protocol among the parties themselves. That means instead of talking with a trusted third parties, the parties should run a protocol among themselves, exchange messages among themselves, and that protocol should emulate the role of a trusted third party. That means that protocol should have the same effect as if the parties have talked with a trusted third party. Okay. So I hope that the problem description is clear. See, all those things, encryption algorithms and approach of encrypting the data won't work. You guys are not understanding that if I encrypt my data, it becomes a jargon. If my computation is to compute, say, if my computation is to compute x1 plus x2, and if you have encrypted x1 to c1 and encrypted x2 to c2, you can't add c1 plus c2 and hope that that will give you x1 plus x2. No, we can't get that. Jayasuriya, what's not clear? Homomorphic encryption is one approach of doing privacy preserving computation, but as I'm saying that currently they are not practically, they are not practical enough. So is there any problem with the problem description? MPC, what is MPC and what is the problem we are trying to solve here? Okay. So I'm assuming that the problem description is clear. So now we will see a tool which will be useful to solve this problem. We will see this primitive is called a secret sharing. So what exactly is the secret sharing problem? I hope that many of you have locker accounts. How exactly the locker account operates? You have a key, and the manager has a key, and only when both of you go together, then only the locker can be opened. If you alone try to open the locker with your key, or if only the manager tries to do that, it will fail, right? So in this particular example, what I am assuming here is the following. You want to have a locking mechanism where the password for opening the locker is shared among the three managers in such a way that only if at least two managers come together, they should be able to open the locker. But if only a single manager tries to open it, the manager should fail. Okay. If only one entity goes, the locker should not be opened. But if two entities go together and enter their respective passwords, then the locker should be accessible. Okay. That's the setting we want. It's believed that in 90s, during the Cold War era, the access to Russia's nuclear weapon was designed in such a way that the password for launching the nuclear weapon was shared among the top three entities of the country, the president, prime minister, and defense minister, in such a way that nuclear weapon could be accessed only if at least two of the three entities come together and enter their respective passwords. This basically ensures that if the enemy country ends up bribing one of the three entities, say the president or say the defense minister, and gets access to the password of that entity, then still the nuclear weapon cannot be launched. Only when at least two of the three entities are compromised, then only the nuclear weapon can be accessed. Okay. So now let us abstract this problem.
Sir, there is a question from Neha.
There is a question from Neha. Okay.
In this case, still we have to assume at least one party should be honest.
Where?
She is asking the secret sharing setting.
At
least one party should be honest, then only it will work smoothly is what she's asking.
No. We see right now we are not bringing here the notion of honest and dishonest. I have not introduced the notion of adversary here. So everyone is honest in the system. We want to have a mechanism where you need at least two passwords or the passwords of at least two entities to access the system. If the password of only one entity is available, the system should not be accessed. Okay. right? So I'm not assuming here, I have not used the term honest, dishonest, bad, adversary. Okay, I will bring those terms later. Okay. So now let us have, yeah.
Yes, sir. She is okay with that. Yes, thanks.
Let us abstract this problem with the problem of secret sharing, okay, which was introduced by Shamir in 79 and independently by Blackley in the same year. This is called NT secret sharing. We have two thresholds here, N and T. What's the problem here? The problem statement is the following. We have a set of parties, N parties, P1 to Pn. They are connected by secure channels. That means you can imagine that there is a dedicated channel between every party. So if P1 wants to talk to PI, there's a channel, and only P1 and PI can converse over that channel. No one else can find out what's the conversation happening over the channel. So we are assuming that such a system is there. Now, among these N parties, there is a designated party, a special party called dealer. Everyone will know who is the dealer. Okay, it could be P1, it could be P2, it could be PI, it could be PN, anyone, fine. And that dealer has a private input, some secret. From a bigger space. This is called secret space. Say, you can imagine that the secret space is, say, all possible binary strings of length L bits, where L could be 1, 2, 3, anything. Okay. From that bigger space, the dealer has some input, small s. And that's private, remember, that's available only with the dealer. What's the goal here? The goal is to compute a share for this secret S. So dealer wants to compute a share for P1, a share for P2, a share for PI, a share for PN using some algorithm. What exactly is that algorithm? We have to come up with that algorithm. So basically, it wants to compute N shares for its secret S, give the first share to the first party, second share to the second party, ith share to the ith party, nth share to the nth party. We want two properties from this sharing mechanism. So we have already utilized one of the parameters N here. N denotes the number of participants. What is the parameter T? T here denotes the threshold. This sharing should be done in such a way that if any subset of T shares, I stress any subset of T shares get compromised, or if any set of T shareholders come together and they tell to each other, hey, tell me your share, and they have access to now a full subset of T shares. So if any subset of T shares is available, then the secret should not be reconstructed back. That means even if up to T shares get compromised, the secret S should not be reconstructed. And this should hold even if those T parties have unlimited time, unlimited resources. That means even if they are computationally unbounded. That's the first property. But if T plus one or more shareholders come together, they should be able to reconstruct back the secret S. So that is why the T here, the parameter T here denotes the threshold. If up to T number of shareholders come together, the secret should not be reconstructed back. If T plus one or more number of shareholders come together, secret should be reconstructed back. So you can control the threshold. As a system designer, you can decide what should be my threshold T. For example, the two case studies which I had shown you in the previous two slides, the nuclear missile thing and the bank manager thing, there n was 3 and t was 1. But I could have another application where n is 4 and t is equal to 2. I may have 4 managers, and I would like to have a system where only if 2 managers, or say 3 managers come together, where at least 3 managers come together, then only the system should be accessible, otherwise not. So T here is like a parameter which you can set. Okay. So this is the problem of secret sharing. I have just given you the problem description. I have not given you a concrete solution for this problem. Okay. We will discuss the exact solution later, but this is the problem description. There is a dealer. There is a very sensitive information available with the dealer, which it does not want to keep with itself, because the dealer is afraid that someone may come and access his secret. So what it wants to do is it wants to create shares for its secret S and distribute those shares across n parties. Parties here could be computers, could be locations, could be anything. So it wants to distribute those n shares across n different parties in such a way that only when t plus 1 or more shares are compromised, then only the secret can be accessible. Otherwise, the secret won't be accessible. So it's like creating pieces of a puzzle. S is like a puzzle. You create pieces of that puzzle so that even if up to t pieces are compromised, no one can solve what exactly was the puzzle. But if t plus 1 or more pieces are available, you will be able to get the puzzle, solve the puzzle. Is the problem description clear?
There is a question from Bharat Hegde. How is SI found?
We have to come up with an algorithm. I am just giving you the problem statement. See, again and again, I think there is a fundamental problem here is, see, if I tell you sorting is a problem, I'm not asking you give me the bubble sort algorithm. I have to describe the problem. So I have described the problem. This is my problem statement. That, okay, I have a secret, give me a mechanism so that using that mechanism, I should be able to come up with n shares so that even if up to t shares are compromised, my secret should not be learned. But if t plus 1 or more shares are learned, my secret should be reconstructed. Since dealer knows the secret, he can open the locker. How it is a safe idea? Well, imagine a scenario where dealer is no longer there. Once it shares the secret, he goes to Kedarnath. He is not available. Now the parties would like to later access the secret. SI will be the passwords of the respective president, defense minister, and vice president. Or it could be the password of the three. S1 will be the password of the first manager, S2 will be the password of the second manager, S3 will be the password of the third manager. If the S is P, then what happened in this case? S is a secret space. It has got nothing to do with the size of the participants. In the previous example, how T is 1? Because T is 1 because you want to have a solution where the system should be accessible only when two entities come together. If one entity comes, system should not be accessible. So that's why T was 1.
Excuse me, sir. There is a question on Zulip from Vigas Srivastava. Does computationally unbounded means information theoretic secure here?
Yes, that's fine. See, again, it depends upon, see, it's up to you what exactly, Rohit Kumar, whether T means the number of shares you want to have so that the system should be accessible or not accessible, you can define here. That's a very simple thing. Why you want to go into those details? I am following a terminology where if T people are available, system should not be accessible. If T plus 1 comes together, it should be accessible. This -1 thing actually looks very ugly. Okay. How can we believe that the dealer will not be available later? Okay, we will see it later when we give the solution for the MPC problem.
Ashish, is dealer trusted party?
Yes.
Okay. No, I had a question yesterday. I said the same, but I just wanted to clarify with you.
Yeah. Right now in this model, I am assuming everyone is following the protocol instructions. But yes, good question. What if the dealer also is not trusted?
So in any scenario, dealer is going to be a trusted party.
Need not be. So when we
Really?
when we bring the malicious corruption model, the dealer could be maliciously corrupt, and he may not be following the protocol instructions. So that's why we have this notion of verifiable secret sharing.
Oh, nice.
But for this entire lecture series, I will assume that everyone follows the protocol instructions.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. So I'm assuming that the problem description is clear. Now let's see a very clever solution for this. This is called Shamir's anti-secret sharing. Okay. This was published as a 2-page article. Okay. But if you just see the number of references for this paper, you will be astonished. At least more than 10,000 citations for this simple paper. Okay. It was proposed by Adi Shamir, the Shamir of your RSA fame. And it is one of the simplest cryptographic constructions that you can think of. It does not require any kind of number theory, nothing. Simply based on basic principle which you have studied in your class 10. And it is one of my personal favorites. What's the idea here? Whatever is the secret which dealer wants to share, set it to be the constant term of a t-degree polynomial, f of x. Okay, this f is not, okay, sorry for the bad choice of notations here. It is not the function f of MPC. Right now, forget about MPC. Focus only on secret sharing. Okay, you could call it any polynomial. So what the dealer is going to do is, it is going to pick a t-degree polynomial which is randomly chosen. What does it mean by randomly chosen? All its coefficients are random, except the constant term. The constant term will be the secret. So that means f of x will be having the form s plus something times x plus something times x square plus something times x power t. This something could be some random values selected by the dealer. But a constant term is fixed, the secret. And let the share be a distinct point on this polynomial, each share. So what I'm saying here, let me take it, and let me explain it with an example here. So t is equal to 1. If t is equal to 1, then what dealer is basically going to do is the following. It is going to randomly pick a straight line. This is a random straight line because the 1-degree polynomial is a straight line. So it's a random straight line, except that its constant term is the secret s. And the shares for the parties will be distinct points on this straight line. So the first share will be the point S1. The second share will be the point S2. The third share will be point S3. Why this solves our problem? So since I am illustrating with t is equal to 1 here, let us see whether both the properties are achieved here or not. So the first requirement was that if t plus 1 shares are available, then the secret should be reconstructed back. It's a well-known fact that if I give you t, what are the t plus 1 shares correspond to in this case? T plus 1 shares will correspond to t plus 1 distinct points. If I give you t plus 1 distinct points on an unknown t-degree polynomial, you can always interpolate it back. You can always recover it back. There are various methods to do that. You can always recover it back. So that achieves the first requirement. But what if T shares are available? If you have only T shares available, then those T shares will correspond to T distinct values on an unknown T degree polynomial, which will be not sufficient to uniquely get back the unknown polynomial. What does that mean? Suppose, for instance, the first shareholder, T is equal to 1 in this case. So suppose the first shareholder, he will be knowing the value of S1, fine. He does not know what is S2. He does not know what is S3. Now he has got unbounded time, resources, all the supercomputers of the universe, fine. Will he be able to figure out what was the straight line dealer has chosen? It could be the case that dealer has chosen this blue straight line, or it could be the case that dealer has chosen this red straight line, which will also give the first share to be S1. Or it could be the case that dealer has chosen this straight line, which also will give the share S1. Or it could be the case that dealer has chosen this straight line, which also passes through the share S1 and so on. So that means from the viewpoint of this first shareholder, even if he performs exponential amount of computation, invest exponential resources, it cannot figure out what exactly was the straight line that dealer has selected. It could be any straight line of which, when evaluated at alpha 1, would have given S1. And hence it cannot figure out what exactly was the secret dealer has chosen, because since it cannot uniquely figure out what exactly was the straight line, it cannot uniquely figure out what was the constant term of that straight line. And that's why the privacy is achieved. Is the idea clear? Before I proceed, let me. Yeah. A very simple fact, right? I am the dealer. I have selected an unknown T degree polynomial, which is unknown means which is known only to me. None of the participants know. And now I give each participant a distinct point on this polynomial, and then I vanish. Now suppose T participants, they are very curious. Hey, come. Let us collaborate and try to find out what was the secret. They will fail to do so because those T points are not sufficient to find out uniquely what was the polynomial the dealer has chosen. But if T plus 1 shareholders come together, then they will be able to uniquely get back the secret, uniquely get back the polynomial. And if they get back the polynomial, well, they can take the constant term, which is going to be the secret. As simple as that. There's no rocket science involved here, right? So you can see the simplicity of the idea here, but to actually make it a workable solution, we have to do all the computations over a finite field. Because if we do not perform computations over a finite field, there might be some security breaches here. Well, because of interest of time, I will not go into the details why we have to perform computations over a finite field. Why can't we select the polynomials with integer coefficients or coefficients which are real numbers? We cannot do that. We have to select polynomials over a field. So let me quickly go through what is a field and what is a polynomial over a field. Well, field is a set, you can imagine. Again, this is not a precise definition, but I am assuming that many of you may not have the background in abstract algebra. So you can imagine field is a set, and there will be two operations which you can perform over the elements of that set, which satisfy certain property. So again, you can imagine this is like my usual plus and usual multiplication, but that need not be the case. But again, this is a very, very imprecise definition. Okay. T degree polynomial over the field will have the same form as polynomials with integer coefficients. Namely, all these coefficients will be elements from this set F. and this plus and multiplication operations will be the plus and multiplications operation of your field. Now, there are some standard properties related to polynomials, which you are all aware of, which we can extend to polynomials over field as well. Okay, so first theorem, very simple. If I give you t plus 1 distinct points, basically this says the theorem statement. If I give you t plus 1 distinct points, distinct xi, yi points over a field, then you can always compute a unique t-degree polynomial passing through those points. Okay, so for instance, if t is equal to 1, then it means that if I give you 2 points, you can find a unique straight line passing through those 2 points, and so on. Okay, this is the pictorial illustration. So if I give you x1, y1, x2, y2, xi, yi, xt plus 1, yt plus 1, you can always compute this f of x. How? There are some standard methods. One simple method will be solving a system of linear equations. But if you want a faster approach, use Lagrange's interpolation. Okay. So now the exact Sami's secret sharing scheme is the following. There will be a setup, public setup. The public setup will be the description of a finite field. We will prefer a finite field of cardinality at least n plus 1. And we will assume that there are some publicly known non-zero values. Let me make it alpha 1 to alpha n. They are publicly known. Okay, that's why I require the cardinality of the field to be at least n plus 1, because I require at least n non-zero distinct elements from the field to be publicly available. Now, what's the sharing mechanism? Here, the secret space will be the field f itself. You might be wondering, what if my secret is a bit string of length L bits? Well, there are standard ways to embed any bit string of any length, of finite length, into elements of field. Okay, so those things are standard. So that's why it is safe to assume that dealer will have a secret which is available with only the dealer, and it's going to be any element from the field. The participants are not aware of that. So what the dealer is going to do for sharing the secret is the following. It will randomly pick this curve. That's important. This curve is not fixed. That means every time dealer wants to share the same secret as, this curve is going to change, because this coefficient for this curve, or the coefficients for this curve, are randomly selected, except the constant term. The constant term will be the secret. So if dealer wants to share the same secret as 1,000 number of times, for each invocation of this Shamil's algorithm, he will be picking 1,000 independent polynomials, but all their coefficients, constant terms, will be the secret. Okay, so he will be randomly picking a t-degree polynomial. Only dealer will be knowing this, and the share for the ith party will be the value of the polynomial at alpha I. Okay, so I have changed x1, x2, xi to alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha. So what will be the share for the ith party? The value of the polynomial at alpha I. Okay, that's the sharing mechanism. correctness is trivial because any set of t plus 1 shares will basically give you t plus 1 distinct points on the t degree polynomial, which will be sufficient to get back the polynomial. Privacy, well, intuitively, I have already given you the idea that why any set of t shares will reveal no information about the secret. Due to interest of time, I will not be going through the formal security proof because that will take some significant amount of time. But intuitively, you can get the idea, right? I have already explained you with the example of t equal to 1. If I give you just 1 point on a straight line, you cannot tell what straight line I have used as a dealer. It could be any straight line passing through that point. And hence, it could be any secret which I have shared. And you can extend this argument for any t and any n. Okay. So at this point, any question regarding the correctness and privacy? Can we use Newton's interpolation? Vivek, what do you say? I don't know how the Newton's interpolation works. It should work.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah. So one question is, instead of Lagrange interpolation, can we use Newton's interpolation?
No, but that's a very different thing altogether, right?
Yeah. So and for secondly, whether it works over the field or not, I don't know.
No, Newton thing I think can be generalized to many things. Yeah, it should not be a problem, but I think they solve different problems, right?
Yeah. I don't know, so that's why I'm asking you.
I'm sorry, I'm also not an expert on Newton's thing, but it's all I know that major application is root finding.
Yeah. So any question regarding the secret sharing scheme? Samir's secret sharing scheme? Okay, so there are no questions. Let me proceed further. So I'm skipping so I have the privacy proof here, but I am skipping it due to interest of time. Okay. Now we will discuss some magical properties of this Samir's secret sharing. This is the linearity property, which is very handy when we actually want to solve the MPC problem. So this is the Samir's sharing algorithm. Okay. The input for this algorithm will be the secret S. What exactly this algorithm does? It randomly picks a t degree polynomial. For that, it randomly picks the coefficients for the polynomial. Remember, the constant term will be the secret. The remaining coefficients are random. So, okay, so I should introduce this notation. This F, and in superscript S and T, it denotes the set of all polynomials, all t degree polynomials with S as the constant term. Okay, so basically, a simple way to understand this Samir's sharing algorithm is the following. Given the input S, the dealer picks a random polynomial from the set of all t degree polynomials whose constant term is S. For doing that, it just has to pick the coefficients randomly, and the shares for individual party will be the value of the polynomial at alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha I, alpha n. So remember, this alpha 1 to alpha n, they are publicly known. That means the points at which, or the values at which the polynomials are evaluated, they are publicly known, but the exact value of the polynomial is not known. Okay, so pictorially, if I make this as alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha t, alpha n, these alpha values are known, but these shares are actually the exact value of the polynomial at those alpha values. They are hidden. Okay, we are not going to hide the points at which we are evaluating the polynomials. They are publicly known. Okay, so now coming back to the linearity property. Imagine that there is some secret S which has been shared by this Samir's sharing mechanism. Okay, that means there was some dealer who has shared his input S by selecting some polynomial which was known only to the dealer, and the vector of shares is S1, S2, Si, Sn. And there is some value C, which is publicly known, suppose. Now, suppose we instruct each participant to multiply its share for S with this value C. So P1 will multiply C with S1, P2 will multiply C with S2, Pi will multiply C with Si, Pn will multiply C with Sn. That will give the values V1, V2, Vi, Vn. If we look closely into this vector V1, V2, Vi, Vn, they lie on another t-degree polynomial. What is that t-degree polynomial? The t-degree polynomial is C times the A polynomial. Okay, why so? Because A was a t-degree polynomial and the constant term of the A polynomial was S. What will be the constant term of this polynomial C times A? It will be C times the constant term of the A polynomial, and the constant term of the A polynomial is S. So that's why the constant term of this C times A polynomial will be C times S. And what will be the value of this? So let me call this polynomial as B polynomial. The B polynomial is now C times the A polynomial. Since A polynomial has degree T, this B polynomial also will have degree T. And what will be the B polynomial evaluated at alpha 1? It will be C polynomial evaluated at alpha 1. But A polynomial evaluated at alpha 1 was the first share of the secret S. So it will be C times the first share of secret S. What will be the B polynomial evaluated at alpha 2? It will be the C times A polynomial evaluated at alpha 2, and it will be C times the second share of S2. And like that, what will be the B polynomial evaluated at alpha n? It will be C times the A polynomial evaluated at alpha n, which is nothing but C times the nth share of S. So now the magic here is, without bringing any dealer into picture, we have done the following. If a value S has been shared already, and if there is a value C which is known to everyone, then to compute the shares of C times S, we do not require any dealer, we do not require any instance of commit sharing to be run. We just have to ask each individual party to multiply its own share of S with this value of C. That will give that party its share of C times S. Is this clear? Yeah. Is this clear? If the size of the secret is big, we can split it into multiple elements of the field and run an instance of summary secret sharing for each element of that field. Those things are not challenging. They are very standard. Okay. Right. So this is now like a magic. Okay. Without even bringing any dealer, without even running any instance of fresh instance of summary secret sharing, what we have done here is the following. If there is an unknown value S, which is already secret shared, and if there is a value C, which is known to all the participants, then to compute a secret sharing of C times S, we can instruct every participant to just multiply its share of S with the value C. In the same way, what if we instruct each participant to add this value C, which is publicly known, to their respective shares of S? Well, that will give them their respective shares of C plus S. because this new vector of values will lie on a t-degree polynomial whose constant term will be the constant term of the A polynomial, which is S plus the value C. Right? This is simple mathematics, nothing more than that. Mathematics related to polynomials. And now finally imagine that there were two different secrets shared by two different dealers. There was one dealer who has shared value S by running a sum is sharing algorithm. And there was another dealer who has shared an independent input S prime, but using the same sum is sharing procedure. That means he also has selected the t-degree polynomial whose constant term would have been S prime, and remaining other coefficients were randomly chosen. And the shares were the value of the B polynomial at alpha 1 to alpha n. So that means now the participants together they have the shares of S. Together they have the shares of S prime. And now if I instruct each participant to add their respective shares of S and S prime, then that basically gives them their respective shares of S plus S prime. And in this whole process, no one learns S, no one learns S prime. That's important. Remember, at no point we are disclosing S or S prime. Everything is happening over shares. No one is talking with anyone else. Once S has been shared, once S prime has been shared, and then if we instruct everyone that, okay, you don't talk to others, you just focus on your individual share of S, your individual share of S prime, add them. Fine. That will give each party its share for S plus S prime. So that's why we say that this sum is secret sharing satisfies the linearity property, because you can perform linear computations here. Linear computations in the sense you can add two secrets, or you can multiply one secret with a publicly known constant, or you can add one constant to an existing secret without knowing the secret by performing the same operation on the respective shares. Okay.
Ashish, in the meanwhile, I just did a quick check on Newton interpolation. I think it should work. See, all these methods by Newton, by Lagrange, and then Bessel, and then there's also Stirling interpolation. They all differ in the techniques. How do you do the interpolation? But the basic idea of interpolation is the same. So the proof of security and the correctness, I think it should remain invariant.
Okay.
And Newton's interpolation is preferred for root finding, I think, because of the convergence properties. And probably Lagrange is more efficient. So they differ in these aspects, but fundamentally it should work.
Okay. So what is this Vanishri? No, it will not be an alternative to Shamir. Shamir's algorithm remains the same. It will be an alternative to how to reconstruct back the polynomial. Shamir's method remains the same. You have to select polynomial, distribute points on the polynomial. And to get back the secret, take the points and get back the polynomial. That is the Shamir's method. How you get the points and get back the polynomial using Newton's method or Lagrange's method, that may differ. That will not mean that there is an alternative to Shamir's algorithm. Okay, what do you mean by method recursively? Can we use which method? Yeah, it can be an alternative to the reconstruction, but that does not mean you are given an alternative to Shamir's method. Shamir's method is fixed, right? Shamir's method is from here you go to Majestic. How you go by to Majestic, that's different question. You may go by foot, you may hire a Ola cab, something. That does not mean you have come up with a new method of Shamir's secret sharing. The method remains the same. You have from here, you have to go to Majestic. Okay, right. So this is the linearity property. Now coming to the MPC problem. Let us see now how we can apply the sum is secret sharing to solve MPC problem. And what I'm going to discuss is a very, very classic protocol called BGW protocol. Why BGW? Attributed to the surnames of the authors, Benor, Goldwasser, and Wigderson. Goldwasser is a Turing Award winner. Okay, and this is a very classic protocol published long back in 1988. Okay, now what is the setting here? The setting that we are going to use here is the following. We will use a private channel model. That means we will assume that there is some method which allows individual parties to talk privately with other parties. Say a dedicated telephone line, some mechanism. How exactly you implement that? That's a different question. Let's not bring that into picture right now. Okay. I am assuming that you already have some mechanism which allows each party to talk privately to other parties. We will assume a synchronous communication network. That means now the protocols will operate as a sequence of communication rounds. Rounds means there will be round 1, followed by round 2, followed by round I, followed by round N. In each round, the parties will do the following. Okay, it will perform some computation as part of the protocol and send some messages to the other parties and receive the messages which other parties would have sent to that party. That will stop one round. That will complete one round. Then they go to the next round. Based on whatever messages they received in the previous round, they will perform some computation, calculate new set of messages, compute new set of messages, and again send those messages to the other parties, receive the messages for the current round from other parties, and the round gets over, and so on. Okay. Now we will assume that the function f, remember in the MPC problem, the goal was to securely compute this function f of x1 to xn. So we will assume an arithmetic circuit abstraction. What does that mean? We will assume that the function which the parties would like to compute, it could be a data mining operation, it could be the max function, it could be your machine learning function, it could be any kind of function. So we will assume that it is represented as an arithmetic circuit over the finite field. What does that mean? It will be clear very soon. I will elaborate on that. And now I will bring the adversarial setting here. I will bring an adversary here. So we will assume that there is some centralized adversary who has unbounded resources, who is computationally unbounded, and it can corrupt any subset of T parties. Which T parties we do not know. It could be the first T, it could be the last T, we don't know anything. Again, T is a parameter here. That means I want to design a protocol among n participants tolerating T number of corruption. You might be wondering, can we set T to any value? Well, fundamentally no. Looking ahead, we have to measure, we have to respect this bound, T less than n over 2 for this BGW protocol. And it turns out that as long as T is less than n by 2, we can achieve security. If T becomes more than n over 2, we may not achieve security if our adversary is computationally unbounded. So adversary can corrupt any subset of T parties. And I will assume passive corruption. That means the corrupt parties, what they are going to do is the following. Whatever messages they have received in the protocol, they have communicated in the protocol, they can give it to the adversary. And then adversary at its discretion can analyze those messages. It can run any algorithm on those messages. It can use any, it can perform any kind of computation on those messages and try to find out the inputs of the other parties. But the adversary will not, or the corrupt parties will not deviate from the protocol instruction. What does that mean? If in the protocol they are asked or they are instructed to add 2 values, they will do that. If they are asked to send a value X, they will send a value X, and so on. That means during the protocol execution, we assume that adversary is not able to corrupt the protocol code of the participant. The protocol code will run as it is. Okay. So a more powerful type of adversary is called as Byzantine corruption or malicious corruption, where the corrupt parties can start deviating from the protocol instructions in arbitrary way because their programs may get corrupt. The protocol code may get corrupt, but that's a more powerful form of adversary, which we are not going to discuss in this lecture series. We are going to focus on a less powerful adversary, namely the passive corruption, which in itself is very practically motivated. There are several scenarios where passive corruptions are actually more realistic compared to malicious corruption. For instance, suppose my computers are so safely guarded that it is very difficult for an adversary to load faulty programs in my computer. But the adversary can get access to my storage space. In that scenario, since it can access my storage space, that means it can see whatever messages during the protocol execution I have communicated and analyze them. But it cannot force my protocol code to get corrupt and start behaving arbitrarily. Okay. So there are several realistic scenarios which are modeled appropriately by passive corruption. So that's why to give you a feeling of MPC in this whole lecture series, I will assume passive corruptions, but there are various protocols even to deal with malicious corruption. Towards the end, I will discuss the references. If you are interested to find out how to deal with malicious corruptions, you can go through those references as well. Now coming to the circuit abstraction, what does it mean that the computation is abstracted as a circuit? Okay, so we will assume here. Yeah.
Sir, there is a question in the chat window, if I can ask.
Hmm.
There is a question from Piyush Gupta. Is BGW MPC protocol broadcast message among all other nodes?
Okay, we will see the answer for this question later when we see the exact protocol. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So what are the assumptions we are making here regarding the function and its form? So we will assume here that each party has a single input. Okay. And that input is an element from the field. Okay. So P1 has only one element x1 as its input, P2 has only one element, Pi has only one element, and Pn has only one element. You might be wondering, what if their inputs are enormously large, huge database? Fine. Again, there are very standard ways to deal with those things. We can map those things as several elements of the field and run the BGW protocol. There's not an issue. And we are going again to assume that there is a single output which is supposed to be learned by everyone. That means the parties are interested to learn this function output y, which is supposed to be learned by everyone. Again, this is a simplifying assumption. You can abstract it to the case where my function should produce different outputs for different parties, depending upon my underlying applications. So again, there are standard ways to deal with that as well. And the function is a deterministic function. Again, this is a simplifying assumption. There are standard ways to deal with the scenario where the function is abstracted as a randomized function. Now, what does that mean by circuit abstraction? We will assume that this function is expressed in the form of some circuit where the circuit has plus gate and multiplication gates over the function f. That means, for instance, you can imagine we have four parties here. Again, this is just an example. And the inputs of the parties are x1, x2, x3, x4, and the parties are interested to compute the function x1 plus x2 times x3 into x4 whole multiplied with c. This is the function output the parties are interested to compute. Okay. So you might be wondering that, is this circuit abstraction justifiable? Yes, it is justifiable. But before giving my explanation, let us see the various gates which are there in this arithmetic circuit abstraction. So we have three different types of gates here. The first layer of gates is the input gates, which basically denotes the inputs of the parties. Then we have the intermediate gates. Those intermediate gates could be addition gates or multiplication gates, or it could be multiplication with some public constant. So here C is publicly known. I could have another function where, say, I add a plus gate and then there is another constant D and I3 gets added to that and so on. So it could be addition with a public constant as well. And then there is this final output. Now, my claim is that this abstract arithmetic circuit abstraction is without loss of generality, because any function, any algorithm, basically, to be more precise, any algorithm representing f can be always represented as an arithmetic circuit over a field. For this, the proof for this comes from complexity theory. Basically, the idea here is the following. Any algorithm or computation, you can always represent it as a Boolean circuit consisting of your universal gates, NAND gates, because at the end of the day, that algorithm has to be run on your computer. So it can be represented, whatever computation that algorithm is performing, you can always represent it in the form of a NAND, as a sequence of NAND gates. Now, that Boolean circuit, whatever computation is done by that Boolean circuit, it can be simulated by an equivalent arithmetic circuit over a field. How? Wherever you have the bit 0, you can map it to the element 0 of your field. So every field has an additive identity 0. Wherever you have the bit 1, you can map it to the multiplicative identity of your field. And wherever there is a negation gate in your Boolean circuit, that you can map to an arithmetic gate performing this operation. And wherever you have an AND operation in the Boolean circuit, that can be mapped to an arithmetic operation multiplying the encoded A and the encoded B. Well, if this part is not clear, you can forget about that. You can believe that this theorem is clear. Any computation, any function f, even if it is a very complex ML function, it can be represented by a Boolean circuit, and that Boolean circuit, you can transform it as an arithmetic circuit. If you are wondering why we want to represent the function using an arithmetic circuit, the reason is that this BGW protocol is for a general function f. That means it tells you how to securely compute any function f, any f. So since we are not knowing the exact function f, we have to assume, we have to make some kind of abstraction for that function. And that abstraction is that arithmetic circuit abstraction, because this BGW protocol will use summary secret sharing, and summary secret sharing can be performed only over fields, right? So that's why we have to take this function f into a finite field. Okay, there are some tailor-made MPC protocols where the exact function description is known to you. Say, for instance, my function f could be an image processing application, or it could be a very dedicated, very specialized machine learning application. In that case, I can design tailor-made MPC protocol suited only for those applications, but then they cannot be run, they cannot be used for other type of functions. Whereas BGW protocol is a secure protocol for any function f. That's why we have to perform this circuit abstraction. Okay, so now the question is that if we perform this circuit abstraction, how exactly we are going to do MPC? So the idea behind the BGW protocol is the following. Once we have represented my function using a circuit, then securely computing the function is equivalent to evaluating this circuit, securely evaluating this circuit. And if I give you all the inputs for this circuit. That means if each participant makes its input public, then evaluating this circuit is very simple, right? So for instance, if P1 says, hey, my input is 4, P2 says my input is 3, P4 says my input is 6, and P4 says my input is 0, then everyone can find out what exactly is the output. But that's not a secure method, because in this process, all the input values, all the intermediate values are learned by everyone else, right? So definitely this is not the right approach. What the BGW approach is the following. It basically says that we will now do the circuit evaluation, but in a different way. Each party will maintain a copy of the circuit. How it can do so? Remember, the function description is publicly known. So everyone will know that, okay, the exact function is consisting of this addition gate followed by this multiplication gate and so on. The exact values of the inputs of the parties are not known.
Sorry to interrupt. So, I mean, so here I have a question. Is there a way to achieve circuit privacy? I mean, they get an output.
Yeah.
Oh, there are already MPC protocols that do that.
Yeah. So see, again, Valiant's theorem says that you can even keep the circuit private. Right.
Oh,
so
okay, right. Okay.
So you can run an MPC protocol for that circuit, which keeps the privacy of the circuit.
Oh, fine. Good. Oh, okay, great. Great. Thanks.
Of course, that may not be the most efficient approach, but in principle, yes, that's doable. And
but for the majority of the applications, function is known, is it?
Yes. But what you are saying makes sense when you basically want to obscure the function itself, the description of the function itself.
Yeah, I want to predict, I come up with a like patented algorithm to predict stock prices. I want to give out service, but I don't want to give out my algorithm, right?
Yeah, there are very few works. There are few MPC protocols for doing that as well, but it's not.
But large majority focus on the public description of F.
Yes.
Okay,
so I have 5 minutes left. I will quickly go through it, and then I will address all the questions which are there in the chat. Okay, I will discuss the invariant which is used in the BGW protocol, and in tomorrow's lecture we will complete the description of BGW protocol. So imagine T is the number of corruptions here. Remember, we assume T is the number of corruptions which can happen. In this example, I am taking T to be 2. Now, the idea behind the BGW protocol is the following. We will evaluate each gate in the circuit, but in a secret shared fashion. What does that mean? Start with the input gates. Ask each input owner to secret share its input. So for instance, the owner of the input X1, who is party 1, he is going to act as a dealer with X1 being its input, run an instance of Samir secret sharing, compute n shares for X1, and give 1 share of X1 to each party. So now each party will have a share for X1. So P1, of course, P1 has the full X1, and he will keep 1 share of X1 with himself, give the second share of X1 to the second party, give the third share of X1 to the third party, and give the fourth share of X1 to the fourth party. Will this leak anything about X1? No, because he has secret shared it using an instance of NT secret sharing scheme. In parallel, whoever is the owner of X2, he will be doing the same thing. He will run an instance of Samir secret sharing with X2 as the input, keep 1 share with himself, give the second share to the second party, third share to the third party, fourth share to the fourth party. In parallel, the owner of X3 will do the same thing. Okay. And in parallel, the owner of the fourth party will do the same thing. That will take care of the inputs. Now you see what has happened is each party has got 1 share of all the inputs in the system. What the adversary will have access to? He will have access to T shares of the inputs of the honest participants. But that will be insufficient to learn anything about the inputs of those honest parties. That means through this process, through secret sharing the inputs, no harm has been done. The inputs are as private as they were before the beginning of the protocol. Now we do the magic here. BGW gate invariant. We are going to maintain the following invariant for each gate in the circuit. Imagine there is a gate G in the circuit, which has an input X and input Y. The gate invariant, and say the output is Z. The BGW gate invariant will be the following. If suppose the input X is secret shared in NT secret shared fashion, and if the input Y of this gate is secret shared in NT secret shared fashion, the protocol, the BGW protocol will ensure that the output of this gate is also available in NT secret shared fashion. That means, to begin with, no one knew the value of X. No one means the adversary. No one knew the value of Y. Sorry, the adversary does not know the value of Y because he has access to only T shares of X, T shares of Y. And somehow, that somehow will be clear tomorrow, we will ensure that we perform some computation on the shares so that everyone will have a share of Z and adversary will have up to T shares for Z, which will not reveal anything about Z. And then we proceed to the next gate in the circuit. And we do this for all the gates in the circuit. So for instance, if I consider this first addition gate, okay, the intermediate value is I1. We will do something here so that no one will know the value of I1, but each party will have a share of I1 somehow. Then we go to the next gate in the circuit. Everyone will do some magic here as per the BGW protocol so that everyone gets a share for this intermediate value. And then we go to the next gate and so on. Okay. How exactly this gate invariant will be maintained? That's the crux of the BGW protocol. Once we come to the final output, once all the outputs have been, once all the gates have been computed in this fashion, and we reach to the output gate, what the parties will have? They will have their individual shares for the output value, which they can announce to each other. And once they announce to each other, they will have the full vector for the exact output value, which they can use to run the Lagrange interpolation or Newton interpolation, whatever you call it, and get back the function output Y. Now, intuitively, why this protocol maintains the privacy? Because what we have done throughout the whole protocol, we have not revealed the individual input values. We have not revealed any intermediate values. Everything has happened over secret shared values. And throughout the whole computation, adversary will have access to only T shares, which are absolutely random for the adversary, which does not tell that adversary what exactly is the value of those gate outputs or gate inputs. And that's why the privacy is maintained. Now I stop here. Tomorrow we will see the exact BGW gate invariant, how this gate invariant is maintained. People who are smart enough, they might now sense that where exactly the linearity property of secret sharing is going to be useful. If my gate is a linear gate, then this invariant is very straightforwardly maintained. But if this gate is a multiplication gate, then we have to do some magic here, which we will see tomorrow. Okay, now let me see the questions which are there. Can MPC be a satisfiability problem? What does that mean? MPC is a, okay, Vanishri, tell me the name of 3 friends, your 3 friends, any 3 friends. Say you have 3 friends and you want to find out the maximum salary which your friends and the maximum salary among 4 of you. That's a kind of secure computation which you want to perform. how you bring it as a satisfiability, how you relate it to satisfiability problem? I'm not able to understand. Okay. Which party computes the function? There is no single party who computes the function. Everyone is evaluating their own copy of the circuit. There is no single party who will have all the inputs. Everyone will have only one share of all the values, and they are performing computation over the shares. No, we are not going to cover zero knowledge proofs. In the verifiable secret sharing, the dealer may not follow the protocol instruction. So he may not pick a t-degree polynomial at the first place. And even if he pick a t-degree polynomial, he may not give the value on those t-degree polynomial to the participants. He may give different values to different participants. So coming to the explanation on verifiable secret sharing, if the dealer is maliciously corrupt, means he may distribute garbage shares. Those shares may not lie on a t-degree polynomial. So the term verifiable there guarantees that once the shares are distributed to the participants, they can verify by exchanging messages among themselves whether the shares lie on a t-degree polynomial or not. Yes, it will Samir secret sharing will handle one secret at a time. If you have multiple secrets, run multiple independent instances of secret sharing.
I think the question from Piyush has remained, is BGW MPC protocol broadcast message among all other nodes?
So I have not discussed the protocol exactly in full details, right?
Yes.
Tomorrow I will discuss.
Yes. I think that point the questions on Zulip are also asked here. So yeah, no more questions.
Yeah, so if you want to see the references, let me share the references here. Yeah, so there is a dedicated course on MPC, which you can find at NPTEL. This I had already offered last semester. All the videos are available freely. And there's an advanced course on MPC. This new course deals with malicious corruptions. The registration is up. Course starts on July 27th, I guess. This is the link. You can register if you are interested.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Ashish. That was a wonderful session.
No, wait. There are some more questions. If t is equal to n minus 1. No, so as I said, we have to ensure t less than n by 2. T is not equal to n minus 1. Therefore, some special functions we can assume t is equal to n minus 1, but the details will be clear soon. Well, see, the reason why we are not assuming dealer will not use the secret himself to open the locker, see, that was a motivational example. If you see the MPC protocol, there the inputs for the dealers are x1, x2, xi, xn. Okay. Now this P1 is the dealer for x1. He does not have access to x2, xi, xn, but he still wants to perform the computation. So that's why he has to share x1 and so on. Yeah, agreed. The locker example, you might say that dealer himself has the secret. You can imagine that say the dealer in the locker example is the say the owner of the bank, and now he is no longer interested in the running the show of the bank, so he has distributed the password among managers and vanished.
Okay, so I suppose there aren't any more questions.
Yeah.
Great. Again, thanks again. So for a wonderful session. So we are eagerly looking forward to your next talk tomorrow morning at 10.